Then after some time a trails of lightning hit a building's top, and after that we see the masked man broke the door with his kick and in rage in his eye said to Hansen that, you could not get away after doing all the dirty sins. Hansen standing there on building top while holding Chul Sung dead body, he turned there, while Li Huayun asked, why did you do it all these things? And bust into tear and crying any scream, you wanting to kill people to become stronger. Then Hansen turned her eye and said, why are you asking him such a trash question? And then he left the Chul Sung body to fall and with maniacally laughing and said, because after all of them he becomes strongest. Then enraged the masked man stepped ahead with his lightning hammer and said, did you already know that he can control lightning? And with angry face he grit his teeth and lightning trails emitting from his both eyes, he said enraged that with the weather like this, you better be prepared to die, and with die scream with his lightning trail on hammer, he jumps over Hansen while Hansen standing there like he waiting him, holding two sword with his both hand and said, yes, he know you are not a easy opponent, and a villainous smile he says, after all he's Hansen, and then he cut into half the masked man. Li Yun all this watching that the masked man body was splinting into half with despair in her eyes, she screamed to Hansen that get together. While Hansen walking in a pool of blood and thinking about that, he is going to crazy because his mind is eaten by and corrupted by this bastard's mind. Just 50% of synchronization is making him his mind is splitting apart. I need to find solution quickly. Then synchronization is increased to 60% and his mana circuit skill is dropping continuous. After that blood is coming from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Then he attack his sword to everywhere while wave of blood creating around, again. System screen appears that assimilation rate is continuous increasing and is gone to 70%. And Hansen thinking about his mental shock is reaching its limit, he can't hold any longer, and his mind is so corrupted that he can't differentiate between pain and pleasure and slowly he is drowning into pool of blood. Then sudden a hand grabbed his neck and said, it's him who took his mirror. Then Hansen remember back then that person, after killing him he took his mirror. It's a high priest's mirror filled with divinity and then from pool of blood a one hand emerged with that mirror. The mirror power is activate a divine barrier protect and get rid of all mental corruption of a certain level, and slowly his status becoming normal, and he start breaking the corruption that binding him. In his dream when he is going to kill Li Huayun he stopped with shaking his body and then from Hansen's head tearing finger emerged and with that real Hansen emerged. Splitting the whole body with screaming and said, he won't let himself to be swallowed. Then system screen informed that his faith has not changed. Verification of the mind has end. Then we see Hansen standing in front of the mirror from the beginning and that mirror is broken into pieces. Hansen wonder he was there all this time with surprised eye. Then administrator are relieved that he's safe. Then system inform him that the god of verification is satisfied and want to meet and he forcibly summoning to the divine realm. The ground beneath Hansen start broken apart with a beam of light and he's falling under the very bright light of path. He scream in fear. Then suddenly all the chaos are very calm and peaceful when a clear vast blue sky appears and Hansen standing middle of the ocean while blue sky reflection made the place endless vast to the horizon. Then the god of verification appear from above Hansen, and Hansen standing in front of him. The god asked to Hansen, who are you? Why does he feel divine power from him? While Hansen stand there quiet, the god said, you don't need to stare at him like that. He assumes that Hansen only see him as a bundle of light anyway, but he is more interested in Hansen's divine power, and again asked, are you, a divine copy created by the tower? Hansen says, he's not understanding his question. Then the god said, divine copy means, the administrator, that who obtained divine through a contract with the tower. Hansen says, he's not administrator, he's just a challenger. The god said, right, you are different from divine copy, your divine power that is only your own. While Hansen listening all this he's puzzled about all these things. The god again said, in his absence tower has gotten interesting, they realize they cannot create the real thing using divine copies, so, how to create a real one using an apostle of the divine copy? Challenger Hansen, you are not normal being. Hansen was shocked to hear that, like he makes it sound like he has done something amazing, but all he did was just kill Karen and coincidentally obtain divine power. Hansen said, "Is this divine power that important?" God said, "You really not know the answer." He thought you remove the traces of a god because you knew. The god smiled and said, "Look like you don't know anything," and Hansen says, "He just happened to obtain it." The god said, "You just happened to remove the traces of God that he bestowed upon his followers. You may not aware of it, but extracting Karen divine power was no coincidence, there is a clear cause and effect." Hansen was shocked to hear cause and effect. The god said, "The Tower of Trial has high expectation from him." Hansen thinks, high expectation from a challenger? The god said, "He made a mistake, he wasn't supposed to let you know that." The tower is enraged, and the god turned to go, while saying, "He'll keep an eye out for how you're doing." Then Hansen tried to stop him and said, "He still have questions to ask. What happened to him in the future? What is the cause and effect that you are talking about?" Then his face darkened and he screamed in pain while holding his head. The god saw him pity and says, "Look like you look too deeply into your future self. When you look into that void, it also looked back at you." The void is always looking for a chance to pry into your mind. That's something you need to watch out for. Soon be returned to where you came from. Hansen standing there puzzled, Hansen asked, "Can't we talk any longer?" Then the god of verification said, "This is where the conversation must end." He had no choice. Tower is a difficult to deal with for any god. If you visit the temple of verification later, he may be able to answer some of your question. Then he gives him advice that, do not trust the other gods, they will now consider you their enemy. Then the tower message appears that he is cleared the 11th floor and he obtained old mirror verification and reward of SP and points. Then he sent to the lobby. He still thinking about the god told him all that things, so, tower helping him to obtain divine power. Then what purpose the tower have in doing all that? He don't get it at all. This is frustrating. At the very least, even if the god considered him their enemy, they can't do anything to him because of the tower. Then system expanding message appear, that the earth is being registered as an official climbing dimension in the Tower of Trial. As a benefit of the registration, there will be added protection from dimensional invasions. Now challenges of other dimension will be met with a penalty when coming to earth. Now Hansen visible to the administrator, Iron Blood Monarch and White Crane Sword Master relieved to see him again while Hansen is slightly smiling and thinking about God word divine copy. Then he realize and gone into despair that, can he trust them? Then he gritted his teeth and thinks, no, he can't trust anyone anymore. Then Hansen come to world of Iron Blood, then the administrator running and calling his name and asked that he's hurt anywhere, but before completing her word Hansen attacked her. She dodged that attack, and wonder what happened to him. Then Hansen said in cold voice that all of you administrator are just cooperating with the tower to use him. There is no emotion in his face. Then administrator see Hansen with sweat on her cheeks. She thinks, Hansen still affected by the verification of mind. Then Hansen run to attack her while biting his arm and he slice vertically that she dodged that attack. Iron Blood Monarch said, Hansen get it together, you are not right mind now. Then Hansen used skill blood manipulation and with his blood he made many pointy arrowhead to ready to attack and said, there's some kind of relationship between you and tower, to exploit the challengers. Iron Blood Monarch pushed back and said, that doesn't make sense, and she parry the attack of Hansen. Then he says in cold tone that, why have you kept telling him to get a grip? And then raising his aura sword he manically laughed and said, he totally has it fucking together right now. Iron Blood Monarch tried to stop him, but Hansen already attacked her with his full power of sword, and on ground big explosion happened, and that attack hit her house that split apart. While Iron Blood Monarch watching it, she is enraged, red light glowing in her eyes. Then she raise her sword and many sword hanging over Hansen. He's now in a big trouble. Then all sword coming down toward him. He ran very fast, but Iron Blood Monarch catch him and said angrily, where are you going? Then there is fear in Hansen eyes. She slam his head in ground that from their ground shacked. Hansen laying on icy ground. Then he suddenly rose and attack her. She dodged it, then Hansen rushed toward her, but then many sword are restrain his arm and then she capture him with her sword prison. After some times in broken house Hansen apologizing, while hanging upside down, Iron Blood Monarch sitting there while sipping her tea, he begging her to untie him. She said, she will obviously untie him. But she worried about the next time you visit, her house will be evaporate, she said. She saw you when you were proving you had it together, your remnants of the abyss hadn't completely removed and become permanently fixed in your personality, even, if you have become twisted, that's another of you the future, your suspicion was not entirely wrong about administrator. Then her sword appears her hand in floating and said, nobody can read the intention of the tower, that goes for the administrator as well. While holding her sword she said, there's no way, then she swing her sword and cut the rope. Hansen approaching to the chair, she said, she never saw that tower take interest in any challenger or expecting it anythings from one challenger, but seeing you in doubt, must mean you heard something from the someone, right? Hansen said yes, the god of verification spoke as if the tower was expecting something from him. She smiled and sweat dropped from her cheek and said, the god of verification, so that why he had such doubt, she said, she's just subordinated to the tower. Hansen thinks, as expected, is there nothing else he can learn about the tower? And sipping the tea, she stand and go beside him and said, she's glad you are enjoying the tea, it's made from the urine of a black dragon, so drink up, it's rare. After listening Hansen pour his tea out of his mouth and don't want to another sip. Hansen said that administrators are being who earn divinity copies through a contract with the tower. Iron Blood Monarch said, she can't tell you about that right now, but you'll find out quite soon. Then she placed some cookies on table. Then Hansen asked about earnest wish of administrators that only fulfill through the challengers who signed disciple contract. She chewing cookies with closed eye and said, is that so? That rascal told you everything. Then Hansen said, so why didn't you tell him about your earnest wish? She slowly said, that is because she felt fear, you underestimating yourself, and she saw you were excessively obsessed with your growth, so, for your growth, she thought you would fly towards earnest wish, the earnest wish trial and challenge it like a moth. Hansen said, is because he had no talent, she said, she don't know just what you think talent is, but soon you learn just how much you are underestimating yourself on the 12th floor trial. Hansen surprised to hear that. Then he returned. His lobby thinks about talent, the gift given by the sky which you can't change. These are separated into 3 aptitude in the world of hunter, skill acquisition, stat increased, trait enlightenment. These are called the hunter's 3 gift, and he wasn't born with any of those. He couldn't gain any skill, his ability didn't increases, and he couldn't even enlighten a unique trait. The Iron Blood Monarch mistaken about something, he having talent. If he did having something like that, he would have been able to be a famous hunter even if he didn't come to the tower. The 12th floor trial is fight and win against a reproduced version of yourself. Then he said, what was the use of thinking more about it, it will face anyway. So, he focusing on improving his fighting skill, and bring out a skill proficiency increase potion that the reward he received from the Japanese government, and Catherine gave him, hers too, so, he have total 3, then he drink one of them. Then system asked him to which skill he want to increase proficiency. He said, magic management, and after consuming all 3 potion, the proficiency is increased 3 times. Then he bring out the reward of 11th floor, old mirror of verification. Hansen activate his flame dragon eye skill and he received a skill that is ingrained in remaining thoughts. Then old mirror of verification exclusive effect remaining thought is activating, and into the mirror there are other dark and gloomy Hansen. Then he randomly received the skill fighting concentration A+, Hansen happy about gaining A+ skill. Then he entered 12th floor trial room and he reached a certain place where the dark aura is circling around a purple light. System message said, the blessing given by the god of darkness has sensed an intruder in the ancient palace, and now he is creating a guardian fighter. The intruder must think about how much they know about themselves. Then that purple light and dark aura create fake Hansen, that he copied Vampire Count's old tail coat, and system tell him to kill other version of yourself that God of Darkness has created. Hansen remember Iron Blood Monarch that she said that the other version of you can even copies your experience and knows all of the strategies he'll use right now, and the most he can even copy your talent. You'll get doomed if you underestimating your own talent. Hansen thinks about God of Darkness that, why do he keep getting involved with gods? He thinks, apparently the replica can only copy on item, it choose defense item, the vampire counts tail code. If he really copied him then it's good chance to judge himself, and after activating instant acceleration and wins grace skill and run towards replica Hansen with his sword and said, yes, let's confirm, his talent. After activating fighting concentration skill, he feels like everything slow because he is very fast. Then with smirk he activate burning sword intense skill and a beam of blue light going to attack replica, but replica still stand calmly, and then replica are responded and with sword collide a bright light appears and replica Hansen back of little with the iron blood sword. Then Hansen thinks about, after sword the next item he copied is counter shield. Hansen thinks, the sword with counter shield, this is the only choice for replica. Then Hansen surprised to see some things. He saw the counter shield turning into a sword and now replica wield two-hand sword. They face each other from distance. Hansen thinks he never changed counter shield into a sword nor he know dual sword arts, and that replica of him using it in an actual fight, because transforming counter shield into sword takes a lot of mana and mental power. He don't use that method, so why did he choose an inefficient method? Of course he had been thinking of dual sword art, but using it in the actual fight with your life on the line? He can't understand it. Then replica jump over Hansen with his dual sword. Hansen watch and greet his teeth and thinks, does replica think this is a practice? Then the both entangled into fierce sword fight. Hansen little tense while thinking that he's losing in term of skill, while replica is leading ahead with his dual sword, which Hansen dodged it and thinks how. Then he remember about his skill Indomitable Will, it's activated for him, then he barely defending the sword attack of replicas. Then replica stand in fighting mode after seeing him. Hansen thinks, is the swordsmanship directly using right now? Then a slice attack coming toward him, he's shocked that swordsmanship being performed through the double swords. He parry that attack and with that shockwave he fall back 100 meter behind and impact on the wall, that wall broken apart. Hansen slowly standing and thinks, he's sure about, it's a blue heaven sword dragon, it's Namgunghayak's swordsmanship. He saw it when he's fighting with him in Japan, the terrifying godliness that helped him understand his arrogance in looking down on skill. It wasn't just skill or power, but pure technique that could surpass skills as a whole. Because his swordsmanship wasn't utilizing skills, so, he thinks he wouldn't be able to learn it on his own. Then he remembered Iron-Blooded Monarch's word that doesn't underestimating yourself. Now Hansen realized that, the true talent, that she was talking about was this. Now the replica is coming to attack. Hansen gritted his teeth because the system sensed danger and disadvantage to Hansen, so, he automatically activate the skill Indomitable Will. He thinks, even though he still have superiority in their item, then why he's in disadvantage. Until then replica jump over glaring with his red eye and ready to attack, while Hansen still standing thinking about and realized that, he's grown. He very unsatisfied and enraged, his fighting concentration is increased 10 asterisk and attack and hit the replica. He blocked that attack with his both sword with crossing them, then they both ready to attack and blood splash around. Hansen fall back several meter. Then again Hansen concentration increased by 15 asterisk and he preparing another attack and sudden came behind replica while replica sensed Hansen, but Hansen already hit him very hard that he fall on ground and with the impact ground crumble into pieces. Hansen not stop there and fly toward him very fast and again attacked him and screaming that got you, while replica sitting there not time to counter that attack. Then replica raise his hand toward Hansen and that hand turn into some kind bubble and then that bubble blast toward Hansen. He has no time to dodge it and his vision blocked by the blood and his attack land on empty ground. Hansen understand that he blow up his arm to escape. The from behind Hansen a bright light appears, he noticed it. The replica fire a beam of light with his sword. Hansen puzzled what to do. That attack nearing his face, he thinks, he's going to die, but at last time second he barely dodged it, his concentration reached 20 asterisk and he entered a state that surpasses limits, so, with help of it he moving very fast that he shadow appearing behind his movement, then he hold his head and very pissed, while Replica watching him puzzled, he said to Replica, he really almost died, then with red glowing eyes he laughing manically and said arrogantly that a mere duplicate, dare to keep trashing around. System messages appears that it's a side effect of surpassing the limit and he will experience a large mental recoil. After that Replica charged toward him and attacked him very close but be blocked it with his sword and with impact he fall back 100 meters away and hit the wall behind that crumble into debris. Hansen release his blood and throw toward Replica that he dodged it and that blood directly hit the 3 pillar while one hit him, and a big blast happened and stone debris flying around. Hansen smiled and asked, how does it taste? But from behind Hansen the Replica emerged into smoke and two sword clash and a light appears, they both fall back, the Replica healing his wound, while Hansen said, bastard, you're stupidly strong. On other place iron-blooded monarch watching the fight sitting on his chair, she angrily put down his cup of tea and said, so, this has happened again, she hold her head with worry face and said, she can't openly help, but can't watch this either, then a smug smile on her face and said, she's a bit worried about how the tower will react. System window appears that communicating with Challenger, sudden her screen which she watching the fight was burst, and system said, the admin's message has been temporarily deactivated to prevent an advice type message. She smiled and said, please excuse her for wanting to serve at least a cup of tea to her contractor. Sudden Hansen hand response automatically and punched himself, he fall back little and he said, how dangerous in the middle of battle. Then we saw real Hansen screaming that stop interfering with his body and stay down, he is in the pool of blood again and restraining him, he said, he thought he was done with that annoying future of him, he's so annoyed. Then sudden something appears in front of him and said to Hansen that, he fought for you because you were about to die, but you're not even thankful. After seeing future himself Hansen said, you bastard. Why don't you leave his body right? Then the Replica said, you still don't know? Watch this situation carefully, after training so long and this point of climbing the tower of 12th floor of this tower, with a smug smile he continues said, you can take a look at yourself properly, you pathetic thrash, greeting his teeth Hansen said, so what? And prepare a punch and attack to him but his future Replica raise his 2 finger and then the blood bars appears in front of Hansen, it's like Hansen is been imprisoned and the future Replica turn from there while Hansen punching the bars to break, and shouting him to stop, then future Replica said, should he teach you something, if you don't let go of the habit of fully relying on your skills, you can't use the real technique. Hansen listening all this with frown face while future Replica walking into blood of pool continues saying that rest in peace here and watch, how he control this body from now on, and he starts slowly sinking into the pool of blood, while Hansen screaming behind the bars, on the dungeon then attacked defended by the dark Replica, the future Hansen smiled and pointed his sword and said, he knows how it feels. System message appears that Administrator Iron-Blooded Monarch has sent an item. Product of Black Dragon portion reading this Hansen wake up like a dream and then he bending the blood bars while future Replica trying to force to stop him then he open inventory and bring out a potion to drink but sudden the dark Replica cut down his hand and the hand holding the portion is in mid-air and then trapped Hansen jump with wide open his mouth and bite the potion bottle while dark Replica fall back and watching all these with surprise face, then Hansen spiting the remains of the potion bottle glass pieces and with a smile in fighting position he said, that he's back, he's thing about when other him fighting he realized that to left the tendency to rely on skill, if that bastard can do it so he can also, then his concentration increased by 20x and feeling a big pressure on him, the acceleration of his thinking raising up, who had entered the acceleration of intact thinking, could finally feel it, an enlightenment in a moment that seemed to last forever. Then the dark Replica run toward him very fast, avoiding his attack Hansen thinks, he has to left his all reliance on skill and keep himself empty and start from adapting the situation and get rid of common sense, get rid of stubborn, and finally, empty himself of all imagery altogether. System window says, he acquired the achievement of trance, mana increases by 4, then his indomitable will is deactivated because user is facing an enemy they can competently defeat. The dark replica is watching him seriously. Hansen rushed toward him with very confidence, then he launched many attack and they both fighting very fiercely. After dodging Hansen attack, the replica came behind him and launched a double sword slash attack which Hansen easily dodged it between slash and landed on ground with a proud smile. Replica was puzzled and rushed toward him again and they both again fighting with their all. Hansen thinks, now, he understand the principle of the technique, not mention at unimaginable speed. Then Hansen slash attack on replica, he barely block it and enraged he rushed to kill him but dodging Nit's attack. Hansen thinks, he can now tell the replica's wrong movement, he's not trying to adapt totally Namgunghayak's sword skill but focusing a lot more to copy. Then a message appears, iron-blooded sword has been activated. Then replica raise his sword while Hansen also raise his one sword and thinks, he need to focus on sword flame strengthening more. And then Hansen throw his sword to replica which he can't avoid it and pierce replica's shoulder. After that Hansen activate his skill blood control with the blood of replica, he made many sharp arrow tips which targeted replica and all attacked him but he run from there and avoid that attack and there a big blast happened, all over dust spread. Then Hansen sudden appears behind replica and attack him with his sword on his shoulder and replica moved from there very fast and activate his shield, he greeting his teeth in anger. Then his wound is slowly healing, he exhale. Hansen didn't give him chance to rest and rush toward him while thinking that, he parry the attack by instantly spinning the shield into circle. After that replica doing try a new sword move and then Hansen attack him that he easily blocked that attack. Hansen thought, what the hell is this? His rough and aggressive swordsmanship that was offensive until now, suddenly switched to mellow sword where everything is flowing. Mellow sword is another one of the skill that Namgung Hulk showed. Seriously, he get that it's his talent but it's annoying as hell. After throwing his sword he thinks, he guess, he can't win without enduring the danger after all. Then skill counter shield activated, replica was shocked. Hansen said, why are you so surprised? Whatever you can do he can too. Then again a fierce fight broke out, they both parry their attacks with sword clash. A bright light appears. Hansen thinks, the replica swords recharged before his, in that case, he spin in midair and said, how about a little adventure? And kicked replica and fall down while replica preparing a counter sword attack on Hansen. He is running from that attack, and thinks, with the counter sword that transformed the counter shield, that means his counter sword will recharge at once and he tried to block that attack with his counter sword but it broke apart as thought of course it had kept snapped. If they receive that attack head on, then he throw broken sword and thought, if replica, you are me, then it's the time to attack as he himself will do, you will be think of it as an opportunity. And replica approaching very fast and attack Hansen and with the sword clash a big wave released and around then all the stone crumbled into pieces. Hansen blocking his attack and thinks with a grim smile that replica is stupidly strong and then replica kicked Hansen and throw away after falling several meter behind Hansen as just he stop and try to stand. Replica's lethal attack coming onto him then Hansen smile and raise his hand and said, got it, and then sudden a sword pierce the replica, he turned behind and saw a blood hand holding that sword. Hansen thinks that the strategy he made when the iron-blooded sword he throws back then and that guy's impatience, using those two things really worked and now, the finale blow and he rushed toward Neil replica but sudden replica stand up and scream louder and power of surge all over. Hansen puzzled and in front of him replica turned into a big monster, and attacked Hansen with his big claws. Hansen easily dodged it and ran away from there. Then sudden monster Hansen cut his forefinger and throw them like bullet that targeted Hansen and blast around him while he avoiding that attack. Hansen thinks, monster's attack pattern has changed, then a attack blast from his behind and he jumped above and lots of stone debris flying around him. Then sudden a big claw coming from ground while Hansen is in mid-air and then big claw emitting light around and blast toward Hansen. He barely defended himself while that monster's hand regenerating and with purple glowing light he smile and glowing, but Hansen is safe and sound, he protected by his counter shield. Then he again turned shield into sword and thinks that it's good that counter shield's cooldown time is over, otherwise he was in great danger. Then Hansen grabbed his sword tight and said to monster that let's come at him. The monster rushed toward him with very anger, and attacked with his leg that explode toward Hansen. Then he attacked with right hand that also explode while the left leg is healing, and then left punch also explode while right hand is healing. Hansen parry all the attacks with his sword and thinks, that fucking monster completely gone mad. Body explosion, it's a great surprise attack in a close range battle. But, if it's going like that rampage, it will consume lot of stamina because of ashen blood skill while the monster continuous attacking with body explosion. Then we saw that monster turn into a skinny and very weak because he is out of stamina. Then Hansen found a chance and attacked him and cut his one arm. Hansen said, now, let's finish this while monster is growling. Then Hansen charged toward him very fast, but the monster is start to doing something. The monster is gathering all the blood from around and made a blood spear from it and attack Hansen, which he defend with his counter shield. Hansen push back several meters back. Hansen grinning with smile that with this attack is so powerful, and thanks to this his counter shield recharged. And then in hand of Hansen a red ball glowing, and he said day to monster while monster growling with fierce eyes. And then Hansen tossed that energy ball above and hit it with his sword. And that energy ball hit straight to the monster face and broke his all teeth that flying around. And then Hansen said, release. System window says that skill counter shield is releasing all absorbed damage at once. A big blast happened. With that impact all around the building turned into half and remain nothing, all turn into piles of stone pieces, and the monster head is vanished. Then tower message appears to congratulation to complete the 12th floor trial, and as ancient emperor's ash crown has to move your inventory as a reward for your achievement. You have received at 80,000 point and 3,000 SP as a reward for your achievement. You have received the skill last stand, B as a bonus achievement reward. Counter shield is leveling up. Hansen exhales from all the exhaustion. Then again a message appears that concentration has been deactivated. Rebound from concentration exceeding the user's limits will soon begin. And Hansen vomiting lots of blood, wiping his blood. His ashen blood skill activate, and he thinking about the side effect of fighting concentration. If he didn't have a cheat heal technique like ashen blood, he wouldn't even have been able to get here. Then Hansen noticed something. On the dead monster body the spirit ball appears. Hansen with happy face thinks the spirit of other me. Then system window enable the restriction on admin messages. Hansen puzzled while iron-blooded monarch tells him to be good to her in the future. Hansen thanks her and thinks, if the admin gets excessively involved with the contractor, they get sanctioned as well. Then system window says, Al, the restricted messages from the admins till now will be displayed at once, and then thousands of messages appears in front of Hansen. Wonder that all these admins were watching him. Some were amazed by the talent he possessed and the level of difficulty, saying he was like a monster, while other doubted if he was really the challenger on the 12th floor, then reacted as if they were sick of this. Then Hansen said, why are you all acting like this? And thinks, how come, of all people, why him? Someone who is already in contract? Why are they trying to make an interest on him? Then he realized that, perhaps, the admins now have the system expansion and can make requests to him. Their clingy reactions are slowly turning his guess into a certainty. Then after thinking something, Hansen smiled widely and said to admins, don't you think that all of just throwing messages like this isn't right? Please sponsor the authority he desire, he said. He'll remember those who do so when the system expands later on. Then admins are start sarcasm on him. One admin's offended by the arrogance of a mere challenger. Another says, you are being overconfident and tell you to know your limits. Then Hansen with grin smile said, it's a chance of first come first serve. He's only taken 3 people. There is chaos in admins, and then 3 admins add their authority to the contractor Hansen. Then Hansen thinks, and now, on to the really important thing, and watching the spirit of replica and thinks, an enemy with not only the same stat, but also identical skills and authority. What will he gain by absorbing the spirit of someone like that? Then he start absorbing the spirit of the challenger replica of Hansen. Then system message appears that the spirit of the challenger perfectly matched the soul of composition of the challenges. Authority divine power has met condition and is now activated. Hansen shocked after lessening the extract divinity. After divinity extraction successful, the rank of divine power has increased by 1 level and Hansen thinks in previous he can't use that power, but now, will he finally be able to use it? Then after entering the 13th floor waiting room a system expansion beginning message appears. Communities separated by the nationalities at global level have been merged. He can now use community of other difficulty level 2. Hansen thinks so now he'll be meeting foreigners in the merged trials as well. At this rate, in the end the community will get merged with other dimension 2. Then he saw the leaderboard and surprised that on 12th floor trial he's the first ranking, and thinks that being the strongest, the reason he climbed the tower and was the goal, he seeked as well, and right now he have gotten one step closer to that goal. At the very least, he is the strongest of all challenges in the earth dimension. However, dimension like Ares, Kalyan, and Murim existed in the tower trial since long in the past. Compared to such dimension, Earth was just recently registered as an official climbing dimension, and is the weakest dimension of all. Unless Earth's overall standard is raised, we are bound to be targeted by other dimension again. Just like back then, what he need to is a strength so formidable that no one can break it. Then Hansen opened his inventory and saw ancient emperor's ash crown, who worshipped the god of darkness. Upon wearing it you will take reign as a spirit king. Item durability is exhausted and it is destroyed once used. Hansen thinks it's powerful for its high grade, but the explanation is a bit vague. And next is bonus reward for cleaning the floor, skill last stand. Hansen surprised to read the effect of last stand and thinks, a skill that can save you from dying once. It does have a week-long cooldown, but considering the skill performance, this isn't even a penalty. Hansen smiled and said, in this trial, aside from the reward, there also the authority that he ripped off from the admins. Then open window, choose from the list of authority. He selected sponsor authority, and with that the authority, heavenly blood cultivation art, hero's blessing, and rapid magic recharge. All 3 authority price is 3000 SP. Hansen thinks all 3 of them are C+ grade authority and pretty cost effective. And with smile he clicked to purchase and system message appears that purchase are complete. All 3 admin told Hansen that not to forget his support while Hansen said, yeah, he'll keep it in mind. Then he thinks, when he absorbs his own spirit, divine extraction triggered out for nowhere. Then he felt a divine light in his heart that he never felt before. It must be the divine power, and then he want to try that power, but nothing happened. He said, so, he can feel the divine power, but can't use it, or he didn't know how to use it. He said, how irritating, do they even want him to use it? Then he seat in a lotus position and calm down himself and thinks, that shitty personality is working its way back to the surface again. Then admin White Crane Sword Master says, she can teach you the divine power better than iron-blooded monarch, and invite him to her place. Hansen rejected her, and said he'll learn it later when he need to, and he'd like to do it himself without depending on someone else. Hansen thinks, rather than divine power right now, he remember Hayek's word that he will come back soon, and Hansen need to focus on becoming stronger right now, at least until he can kill Namgung Hulk, and he will come find me again, no matter what. He has to perfected some authority and one he curious about heavenly blood cultivation art. Then he activated that authority and a red and black glowing aura around Hansen, greeting his teeth. He thinks, he feels as if he has been reborn as a human made for combat. His blood's boiling, this is what he needed. Then he behaving strangely again and hold his head, and then his dual personality appears with grin smile, then at the same time both talking each other that, while stretching own faces. Hansen thinks, this has never happened before, that shitty personality is being manifested in same body as him at the same time. Then he wielded the sword and the other Hansen said to die and swing the sword to himself. while the real Hansen immediately wielded another sword and blocked that attack and said, "If he die, you'll die too, you lunatic." With a maniacally smile the other Hansen said, "You dumb fuck, he's getting rid of you because he can't have you." The real Hansen barely defending that attack and thinks, he didn't expect this at all. What to do? There are red aura all around swords, he thinks, the sword absorbing the blood chi that heavenly blood art is creating. Then Hansen saw a system window that heavenly blood demonic sword, the ultimate skill will be unlocked. Then he grabbed the sword with his hand, and reflect the attack. And going to attack on his another hand and pierce it with the sword, he scream in pain and thinks he'll load this damn bastard up with blood chi and send him away. Then system message appears that condition have been fulfilled and the true power of the heavenly blood demonic sword have been unlocked, and its name has been changed to true heavenly blood demonic sword, and blood consumption exclusive slot has been created. Hansen was surprised while healing his wound. He said, "Blood consumption exclusive slot, and in front of him there are 3 slot open." He was frown and shocked while holding the sword. He can now engrave skills onto sword and there's no cost other than cool down time. Hansen smile and thinks it's a jackpot growth item that never existed before. Then he begin the 13th floor trial, and he frown to know that it's a team trial. He thinks, he don't have any good memory with team trials, but still, the reward of this trial is a random skill book. The mission of the 13th trial is that, the city conquered by vampire, found and save the hidden cleric in the city conquered by vampire, assigning team member then 4 portal open and Hansen come out one of them. Hansen thinks, so annoying, having to find the cleric or whatnot, can't we just invade the city and kill everyone as they come? He has ability that can annihilate an entire city right now. Then another team member also came forward from portal. He is Tarkovsky. He said, "Damn it," he was wondering why it's a team trial. Then another team member come from portal and said, "Oh hello, it's nice to meet you again." He is legendary ninja. And the 4th member also come from portal. He's a old man, his name is Clock Tower Wizard. He said, "It's nice to meet you." Hansen thinks, their nicknames in trial list and they're all high ranking players. The old man said, "This place, he can smell the stink of blood." They all gather in room around a table which is so messy and there are corpses there. The old wizard said, "Is this the banquet hall of vampires?" Then 2 vampire appear from behind and said, "Correct," and they both attacked old wizard, and while he laughing and said, "Dessert has come right to their plate," and thanked them for the meal. Then someone grabbed the head of vampire from behind, and legendary ninja also rushed behind another vampire. Then Tarkovsky beheaded one vampire and ninja killed vampire with multiple slash attack. They both killed them very swiftly and fast. The legendary ninja said, "He had thought you might be, but you are really Russian largest guilds." Then Tarkovsky said, he hadn't thought of hiding it, and yes, he is the head of the Carpentium Guild. Ninja said, that's what he thought, he is an S-rank hunter within the Japanese Hunter Association, Michimoto Sachio. Tarkovsky said, "Oh, you are even more famous than him, you are Japan's sole S-rank hunter." Ninja smile and suggest call him just Sachio. Then he said, "Anyway, you are all ready to fight right now?" Tarkovsky said, "Vampires can sense when their friends nearby are killed, so they'll soon rush here in a group." The old wizard said, "You don't need to worry about that, he already set up a barrier, so they won't be able to come here." Sachio thinks, now that shows experience. He asked old wizard name, then the old wizard introduced himself as David Taylor. He's just nobody wizard from the clock tower, Sachio Satirn, the one that's known as the best of the world's magic tower. Tarkovsky said, "Are you a great wizard that's about to retire? But being dragged here to the tower, how unlucky." The wizard said, "He think, he's lucky to do this as an old age. If anything, a mystical essence like the tower is an interesting research topic for a wizard." Then they all 3 watching the Hansen as his intro. Then Hansen said, "He's Han Surgeon, AC ranked hunter from Korea." Then the wizard opened window curtain as peeking outside and there are many vampires roaming around. He said, "The 13th floor trial, even weak vampire can easily beat AC ranked hunter." and the vampire count has some of the highest class of ability even among S-ranked hunter. He even has regeneration which will make him difficult to kill. So, just as the tower said, we need to save the hidden clerics throughout and receive their help to beat this trial. Then they three sit on chair while Hansen standing beside the all, they three discussing about how to enter the city and making a plan. The old wizard said, "First Sachio, if you use your stealth skill to gather a small groups, he'll block out our traces using a barrier, and then we can get rid of them while hunting as a party in one go. That's the most efficient way." Then they all agree, and with this plan they can beat the 13th floor in 10 days. After listening their plan, Hansen thinks, "No, if we're that slow, we won't be able to receive the additional pass reward." Then he approached towards them and said, "Everyone, he think you might be mistaken about something, but beating this trial like that won't be effective." The wizard said, "Then do you have a better method?" Hansen with smile said, "Of course he do, a method with the most efficiency." The wizard surprised and asked, "Oh, and what is that method?" Then Tarkovsky said, he is curious too, while Sachio with smile said, "Wow, like a challenger if the world rank #1, do you have your own secret to clearing trials?" Then Hansen said, "The method is shut the fuck up." Sachio and wizard said, "What? What's with this method, what did you just say?" Then Hansen bring out his sword and swing it on door and cut it, and with his finger push outside, the door fall back outside, and behind Hansen, there are thousands of vampires watching him. Hansen with smile said, "We can clear this trial if we just shut the fuck up and charge. Let's wipe them already, have been already." All the vampire watching them and growling with red menacing eyes. One vampire said, "Human, where did the human come from?" Then all the vampire rushed toward them, and one of them said, "He don't care about that, let's just enjoy this meal," and screaming fresh blood with that, there is blood axe came to their hand. The team member were shocked and shouted on Hansen, "Hey, you crazy? What you have done? Do you want to die?" Hansen with crazy smile said, "Then let's begin the plan." Then three vampire jump over three teammates, and one of the vampires swing his dagger on them, but it blocked by barrier and they can't see them. The two vampires said, "What? They disappeared, they're using magic. Be careful." Tarkovsky wonder what happened, while wizard said, "It'll be difficult to maintain group stealth for a long time," and greeting his teeth and thinks, "Why is there always a crazy human, who wants to be throw everything whenever he do a team trial?" He said, "It's unfortunate, but it might be best to rule out Hansen and just retreat for now." While other side Hansen standing in front of hundreds of vampire and lots of sharp-edged blood spear tip targeting him, Hansen said, "Oh, do you also have basic setting of a blood domination ability like Truth Seeker of Blood?" While all vampires shouting that, "Become a delicious meal human," and the blood spear that going to hit Hansen, all three teammates running from there, while Sachio turn and thinks, why did he make such a reckless decision? And then sudden his eyes widen, and stopping there he said to teammates, "Everyone look over there." Then Hansen activated his skill Truth Seeker of Blood. All that blood spear are controlled by Hansen. All the vampires shocked and surprised and said, "How can a human have blood manipulation? Isn't the one of us, what the fuck? His blood domination ability is stronger than ours. This makes no sense." Then Hansen hands down as an attack, the blood spear piercing the vampires. Everyone is screaming in pain, while Hansen absorbing all their spirit and laughing like a monster. All the vampires shouting that he is a monster. We need to call count. All three teammates watching all this, while the wizard thinking that, when facing such an overwhelmingly strong enemy, it makes sense to move with the plan. There's no way that such a brutish method should work, so how? After realizing the wizard shocked and sweat drop all over his face, he thinks, so because, he's just weak? David Taylor was a high-level fighting mage who had fought on the front line for the long time. He was also a clever person, even at the top of trials, using his outstanding strategy, he always got good result, and was able to complete the floor trials and become high-ranked challenger. As always for the 13th floor trial, he was able to present a clear strategy with his cleverness. There was no strategy more effective than this. However, with Hansen's plan, he thought, what kind of nonsense? Strategy is something that needs to be done first to solve a problem, like one person lure the enemy and other teammates finish them, but Hansen destroy that strategy with his power. Then in middle of battle Hansen start killing the vampire and their heads rolling in mid-air, while his teammates tensed and said, is he human? Tarkovsky said, let's forget the plan, it's best to support him. Sachio also agree. The wizard said wait, he acknowledged that Hansen is ridiculously strong. However, the vampire are the size of a city, one single human cannot handle this. While Hansen standing in front of countless vampires to fight, the wizard said, if any single person clear it before then we must hear it. That's because party hunting develop, because no matter how strong you are, in a melee situation to be able to face many variables, is impossible alone, right? Then we seen Hansen in action with his sword that he blocking the vampire blood spears, then sudden Hansen's both hands caught by vampires and they all holding him while 3 vampire jump over him to attack, then Hansen frown little, but then he expanded his both hand and blast them, with that all vampire fly away and Hansen activate his truth of blood seeker skill and killing them in mid-air and healing his hand same time. Hansen thinks, body explosion. It's a good skill, but cost a lot of money. 2 vampires screaming in pain because their hands chopped off. Then one of them said, how can a mere human interfere with the authority that the god of battle has bestowed upon them? Then one of vampire trembling in fear and holding his head he said, he's disciple, while other vampire wondering, what he's saying. He says, the god of human protector has sent a disciple because we killed all of the human of the city, so he's angry with us. After listening this all vampires scared and panic and start praying to God, and ask to please bestow your believers with the salvation. Hansen puzzled and frowned little about hearing their nonsense. Then a vampire hit on his head by a big hand and that vampire said, weak bastard, and then that big vampire pointed his finger to Hansen and said to them, look carefully, he is breathing heavily, the human has grown weary. Then after motivated all vampires start happily laughing again. Many vampire jumps over Hansen to attack, then Hansen bring holding a spirit in his palm while 2 vampire wondering, what is that? Then Hansen hold 4 spirit in his finger gaps, throw them into his mouth and swallow it, and a powerful red aura spread around and said, your comrade. System messages appears that after using spirit of vampire his mana and stamina recover complete. Hansen with smiling said, let's start round 2. All the vampire again in panic and scared while Hansen massacring all the vampire, his teammate watching all this from distance. Sachio said, wow, he's not rank 1 in the world for nothing, it's almost make it seems like melee is his specialty. Tarkovsky said, he agree, he's not tired, and if anything, he seemed to be getting even stronger. He said, he'll go and help. And Sachio also want to join the battle. Hansen using all spirit to supplement stamina and his strength, agility and magic increased much more. Hansen thinks, if you simply compare the scope of growth, it's even better than when he absorbed the replica spirit. And once he kill the vampire count, this trial will be pretty good. Then there are many admins showing interest in him and praising him for his power while Hansen thinks, nice. The admins are still getting baited. Hansen standing thinking all this. Then his teammates arrived. He said, he thought you went to find the cleric? The wizard said, we apologize, from now on, we'll follow your opinion. They all agree with that decision. Hansen said, so all of you understand the effectiveness of his plan. After hearing this all disappoint again. Then sudden skill 6th sense activated. Hansen turned fast and saw a big ocean of blood hovering over the city. With grin smile Hansen thinks, the vampire count. All the teammates alert and Tarkovsky said, great magic? The vampire count can even use great magic? The wizard said, that's probably just a species trait. However, the problem is that he's strong enough to do something of a great magic. Sachio said, so what should we do? At this rate, it's only a matter of time before we all die. Hansen thinks, he must be protect them and said, everyone please get away from this place and find the clerics and bring them here. They all shocked to hear this. Then Sachio said, clerics. He thought there was no point to do that. Then Hansen interrupted him and said, he'll be frank, if you are here, he think you'll get in the way of our battle. Hansen thinks, there is the fact that he can't protect all three of them, but he need to hunt the vampire count alone to absorb the spirit. The higher the level of contribution from others, the more likely he will be unable to absorb the spirit. Then they all said, we will follow your order, even it's feel uncomfortable since it's been a while since they were just luggage. They'll bring the clerics. They all run from there to search clerics. Then Hansen said, shall we get started? And facing a massive wave of great magic coming toward him, then skill fighting concentration activated, and authority heavenly blood cultivation art also activated. Then Hansen gathering all the power, then skill truth seeker of blood activated, and he discharge his power toward great magic and it start to dissipated. The vampire count was frown and puzzled, and enraged he shouting, how dare a pathetic human resist against him. He tried to maintain the base of the city in order to use it, then in angrily he put pressure on great magic with one finger and said, but he'll turn it all into hell. And then the ocean of blood pouring to over city very fast. Hansen surprised while holding that power and thinks, the scales is way bigger than he expected. With sweaty face he said, he don't think he'll be able to block this. He fucked. Sir Neil vampire count was warrior. He don't remember when is, he don't know when it began. He just fought and fought. Fighting itself had become his life, as it often did for those who had thirst. When he finally came to his senses, he was standing atop countless corpses, and eventually his thirst reached the sky. The god of battle has chosen Sir Neil as a prospective disciple. The greatest wish of his species was to destroy the humans impregnable four great allied nations, and as a result we killed countless human and destroyed three of the nations, to the point that the root of the four great allied nations, the fountain of life, had become red with blood, and if he completely conquer this final nation, he can be acknowledged by the god of battle as a true disciple, and reach the peak, by becoming king of vampires. Earlier when vampire count enjoying his breakfast, a servant came in hurry and said, Count, there's trouble, your forces are being murdered. No, massacred by a human. Vampire count was angry. Some servant bring out a big mirror, and in battlefield there was some flying monster. They were watching the battles that displaying on the mirror screen. Vampire count was very angry while eating. He said, he's sure he took care of anyone who has asserted that they were warrior. Which nation sent these bastard? The servant in shaking in fear said, they just suddenly appeared. Vampire count greeting his teeth said, suddenly. His precious were suddenly massacred? Then his scream fiercely in anger. Sans said, how does it make sense that they suddenly popped into the middle of the city, avoiding those entire eye? Then all his servants' soul came out from their bodies while his servant calming down the vampire count. Then a fierce look he said, he just need to perfectly conquer the city to be acknowledged as a true disciple. They messed everything up. How dare a pathetic human can do this? Back to present, he said, he tried to maintain the base of the city but he'll turn it all into hell. Hansen thinks, he can't block this. Then he start running from there and thinks, he should forget the city and save his party members first. Then he saw the party members stand there and the wizard put a shield on them. Hansen running toward them while the wave of ocean of blood coming from behind. Then Hansen came near party member and jump over their shield and activate his counter shield above them and block the wave of the blood ocean. His shield is cracking and broke apart and he felt from above and the wave of blood ocean engulf everything's in his way. After all that over, Hansen laying down on the ground while his teammates running toward him and worrying about him. Hansen asked them, how are they? They said, they're all okay. Sachio said, thanks to you taking the brunt of the attack up front. They all turned and saw, the vampire count was landing in front of them. Lord Vampire Count thinks, surprising, to think they survived that attack, so it was no coincidence that they were able to massacre his kin? While approaching toward them, they all stand in fighting position. Vampire Count think, one naive weak-bodied person and those 3 standing perfectly fine must be the main member. Then he raised his both hand in cross position and the blood circling around his hand, and then a big blood sword appears attached from his hand and shouted, "Insect-like human bastard, he'll rip you to shreds." All 3 party members are frown and tensed. Then Hansen stand ahead of them and said, "Everyone, step back, he'll face him himself." Then party members step back and Tarkovsky said, "If you need us, call us immediately." Then Vampire Count said, "He'll not let you go," and fly fast toward them and killing intent in his eyes. While running toward them, he noticed something and saw Hansen and thinks, that human who had been stuck. When? Then Hansen said to his face, "Have you heard of the term, be careful what you wish for?" With arrogant smile he said, "He'll return all the words you said as you said them." Then Vampire Count said, "Crazy human, how dare you act like some cool warrior and prepare to kill him." But Hansen ready with his 2 sword and said, "First." Then he cut the Vampire Count into the 1,000 pieces and said, "He'll rip you to shreds." The Vampire Count stunned and frowned while his teammates shocked, Count body falling on the ground, and Hansen said, "Everyone please hurry and find the clerics." Sachio said, "You killed the Vampire Counts, so is there any need for that?" Hansen said, "Doesn't something seem strange? If we cleared the trial, the system messages popped up, the fact that it hasn't." Then Hansen's skill Flame Dragon Eye activated. Then he saw, Vampire Count's body pieces automatic flying, and with the authority of regeneration, he is currently recovering his body. All his teammates screamed in shock to saw that. Tarkovsky said, "No, so he can regenerate in that state as well?" While the wizard said, "That's so absurd." Sachio said, "The city's in ruins, so the clerics must be dead. How about we just join the battle as well?" Hansen said, "No, he'll block the Vampire Count, so whether it's the clerics or some holy relics, please, go find something and bring it. He thinks, sorry, but he need to kill the boss himself." The wizard said, "If you go so far as to say that, understood." Sachio said, "Exploring is his expertise, he'll do his best." Then Vampire Count regenerating his body, and then he fully recovered, and shouted, "How dare you do that to him?" Hansen thinks, his regeneration truly unbelievable. Then Vampire Count start running toward him with red glowing eyes, and launch a attack while dodging the attack. Hansen thinking, but when it comes to compatibility, he is much more superior to him. The Vampire Count said, "Rat-like bastard." Then he start binding the rock around him with his blood manipulation skill, and threw them toward Hansen. He trying to dodge those, but that attack following him, he have no choice. He stopped there and start facing that attack, and then there are blast happening all over there. Vampire Count said, "How is it humans? He wants to step higher than you in a blood manipulation." Hansen suddenly appear behind Count and with smile said, he acknowledged that, thanks to you, he learned an application skill. Then Vampire Count turn and there are cut marks on his face. He scream and then burst into the 1,000 pieces. Hansen thinks, he cut him more thinly than last time, but they still regenerating. No way, it's actually impossible to kill him without a cleric. In the city is in this state, he would be hard for the cleric to have survived. Then again Vampire Count start regenerating, and after full recovering he appears in front of Hansen with fierce look. Hansen thinks, this is so annoying. Vampire Count said, "Did you think you could kill me?" Then Hansen said, curious, while Vampire Count was puzzled. Then with fierce and menacing laugh he said, "He's curious, how many times do he need to slaughter you before you really die?" The Vampire Lord Count frowned and Hansen released his aura. Count thinks with shaking hand, he's so near, is getting scared. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "Don't look down on him. He's the man who will become the Vampire King." And then he raised his sword or a hand to attack, Hansen standing there unshakable. And then Hansen said, "The third." Again he cut Vampire Count into pieces. Then after recovering Vampire Count said, "Don't think you're winning that because you are inflicting pain on him." Even he didn't complete his sentence. Hansen said, "Fourth," and again cut him into pieces. After recovering he laughing loud and said, "It's useless, you have no way to kill me." But Hansen said, "Fifth," and slash him into half. Then again sixth time cut him, while vampire count saying that as long as you're human, you will not escape the physical laws, you will soon tire and collapse. But Hansen continues slashing him seventh time. After regenerating, vampire count said, "Were you really that legendary warrior? How is it that you're using mana like this and not tiring?" Then 8 slash cut him into pieces. System messages said, "The achievement received Artist of the Battlefield and activating skill torture technique." While regenerating vampire count, Hansen said, "Will he do sliced meat or ground meat?" After regenerating, vampire count scared and start running from there very fast and said, "He is a monster." Hansen wonder what happened, then he instant moved before vampire count and seating on a stone. He said, "I told you, he'll return all the words that you've said." Then brings out his sword and said, "With whose permission? He will not let you go." Vampire count saw him with fear in his eye and said, "You crazy, devilish bastard." Then ninth slash cut him while he's saying, "Stop, he'll negotiate. Yes, let's negotiate, he'll do anything you want." Then 10th slash, and 11th slash, vampire count said, "He'll give you all the wealth and honor you want." After 12th slash, vampire count start to beg to just kill him. "He can't live like this, you are just a warrior, you're just a rotten devilish murderer." System inform him that, he have obtained the achievement Beginning of Lunacy and skill Amplified Pain activated. While Hansen continuing his massacre, vampire count cut head with teary eyes begging him to stop. He give up, he will pledge everything's to you. Then Hansen said, "Can you just shut up and die?" Then Hansen realized something and a grin smile appears. He said to Count, "Kid," with waving his finger said, "Come this way." Vampire count run toward him while regenerating and said, "Yes sir." He's bowing his head into ground. Hansen said, "There is one way for you to escape this pain, what do you think?" With kneeling down, vampire count said, "What must he do?" Then Hansen activate skill Counter Shield. A beam of red light fell to the ground and it transformed into Counter Scarecrow. Hansen said, "Hit this things until I tell you to stop." Vampire after listening but not moving from his place, Hansen said, "Why aren't you hitting it yet? Do you want to live?" Then with very fast move vampire count start hitting, and with scared face he thinking, from beginning to end, today's event, he can't grasp anything. There's nothing about this crazy human suddenly appears and annihilate the strongest force in history, the vampires. No matter how he think of it, something strange, perhaps, a trial of God. In the first place, a human having a blood domination ability was strange, because we vampire became lax, they wanted to tighten discipline. This much be the savior of the vampire who wanted to train us to be more guard. After all this time hitting it suddenly Counter Scarecrow emit beam of light in the sky, then system message says, skill Counter Shield can now counter the accumulated damage. Then Hansen said, "Okay enough," and vampire count stop and watching him. Then with monstrous face Hansen said, "It's now time to die." Vampire count frown stand there while a red aura start to approaching him, and capture him into a bubble. Then he threw his sword towards him and that sword hit the bubble, and Counter Shield has released all absorbed damage at once. A very big blast happen. Hansen thinks, he can just vaporize you so not a piece of meat remains, while vampire count said, finally, he can die. And a nuclear-like blast happened. Hansen watching all this with calm face. System congratulation message came, you have completed the 13th floor of trial, and he gained many rewards. Hansen smile and thinks, he succeeded in killing him. He think then he can absorb the blood that vampire count spilled. With blood consumption, if you are designated and kill a target with heavenly blood demonic sword, you can absorb the target's blood with the blade and increase the ability of the overall item as well as engrave a random skill. Then Hansen point his sword to the blood, and it start blood consumption all around, and its rank increased and also engraved a skill strengthen blood. Then Hansen activate that skill, then he's surprised by this power and think, vampire count a blood domination skill that's greater than his, and this is as if he has became the vampire king, and then there's a 3-layer sword formation appears around Hansen. Then he start absorbing the vampire count spirit, then system message popped up that, you have absorbed the vampire count spirit, condition of authority divine powers have been met and the ability is activating, attempting divinity extraction. Hansen thinks, he saw this message once when absorbing the replica spirit, a divine bright light appears on him, he thinks, he didn't know back then, but the condition of divinity extraction was whether or not the spirit possessed divine power. Judging from the fact that you can't extract divinity from normal vampire, maybe it only applied to those with the divine power on the same level as mine, then system messages that authority harvest of faith is engraved into end user Hansen. He was surprised, then suddenly someone calling him, he turned and then saw his party member, Sachio with big smile said, the clerics protects more people than we expected, then all the people praising Hansen, some thanks him, some calls him hero. System window popped up and said, authority harvest of faith has sensed a strong faith toward user. Hansen with surprise face thinks, the people are sending faith to him. So even faith sent through delusion is considered faith, then he want to use this opportunity, he activate his skill charisma, the people were cheering him, while Hansen receiving the divinity extraction in full. Had anything this happens if I have been given well skill charisma activated, your presence has gotten better and the other all receiving a great influence, his overall stat increased, calculating the myth based on the actual result compared to the believer's faith. Hansen. Wondering about myth, system messages appears that myth eradicator of vampire complete. Hansen was puzzled, then again system popped up, the effect recovery impossible and exorcism will now adhere to divine attacks. The effect, Hansen thinks, because he ended the vampire count's cycle of infinite recovery, he earned the effect recovery impossible, and because he massacred the vampire city, he gained the effect exorcism. Hansen smile and thinks, now he finally know what myth accumulation is actually like. The harvest of faith he earned in tandem with the authority divine power in the form of myth, now authority are created within authorities, seeing how the divine power, which he didn't use until now, is steadily being output, it seemed that when he activate myth, the divine power which has taken place in my heart is consumed. System messages says, there are not enough fables and faith, the accumulated faith will be reserved for the next myth. Hansen think, it's finished harvesting the people, so harvest of faith deactivated, people standing bowing their head in front of Hansen, he thinks, so this floor has ended safely too. His party member are about to leave, then wizard said, he judged you wrong, will you accept his apology? Hansen shake his hand and said, of course. Then system messages says, the good or battle has realized that this prospective disciple has died, then the god of battle sensed Hansen existence and his divine power and is bearing animosity, then Hansen sudden kneeled down from some kind of pressure, while the wizard said, what's wrong? Hansen thinks about god of battle with sweat around his all over body, then the ground start cracking and all the people falling into lava pit. System says, you have entered the divine domain. Hansen wonder, what is the situation? The trials are definitely over, he is barely holding the pressure of God and totally exhaust while all the people run toward him to save them. The wizard saw his portal on a piece of land which is surrounded by lava tornado. Hansen said to him, let's shake hands once more, and with that Hansen hold his hand and throw him toward portal. The wizard thinks while flying toward portal that, he's quite unsophisticated, but his solutions definitely work. Grounds are engulfing by lavas, peoples were scared, then Hansen appears and punch the ground and activate skill counter shield, and that save people from lava tornado. The wizard thinks, this heartless world a hero still exists, wouldn't he look like that? He hoped that Hansen returned safely as well, and after that he finally gone into portal. Hansen made a bridge with his shield and people crossing toward another ground. Hansen said, he can't maintain this for long, so please hurry cross the bridge. Hansen thinks, he had been hoping, but they aren't releasing any more faith, he need to enter the portal. But then a system messages appear that, the god of battle is feeling disgust at the fact that a mere mortal possesses divinity. Then sudden all the people holding their head in pain like it's going to explode, and that really happens, all the people's heads explodes. Hansen was shocked and covered in blood of people, he's standing there silently watching their death. The god of battle is saying that a dog that the tower raised has crossed the line. Hansen gritted his teeth and said, "Crossed the line? You're the one who crossed the line just now. As long as he have the tower's protection, if you interfere with me any further, you will be in trouble, won't you?" If you have nothing else to say, he's leaving, and a portal open and he approaching toward portal. The god of battle sends you a ferocious smile, he can't wait for the soon coming mortals end. With ferocious eyes Hansen thinks, so that even the gods won't be able to treat him recklessly. When he enter the 14th floor waiting room, system expanding messages appears, many item added to contractor's exclusive store. Hansen think about all the humans that slaughtered by the battle of God. It's a space that tower created anyway, it's useless to get emotionally charged from something that he don't know even real. He has a bad relationship with the god. Then he remember the warning of that god, do not trust other god, they will now consider you their enemy. So that was what would happen in the end. Let's stop thinking about this stuff that he has no control over and just do what he can. Then he bring out the stone and cleaned himself and changed the cloth, and he purchased authority path of the blade master. Then he enter the bamboo forest. White crane sword master said, "It's been a while, Hansen," she said. "She heard from that woman that you are the enemy of Namgun clan's child." Hansen said, "Yes, somehow, that's what happened." She said, "It must be because of Namgun Hayek that you used your special point to buy her authority, correct? Then you're definitely made a good decision, because, if we use a commonly used expression, you are a genius, since without even knowing the proper enlightenment passages, you instinctually learn the form of sportsmanship and already exceeded the domain of imitation. You already have grandmaster material from the fact that you could improve by practically learning the Namgun clan's basic moves." She's saying it wouldn't be strange if you were the first of the sect to establish a sword sect. Hansen tensed and said, "To that degree?" She said, "Since now everything you learn and realize will be skills that be certified by the tower, she will teach you everything, but she has a condition, you need to have a master-student relationship with her." Hansen said, "All right, he'll become your student, master." She is little bit nervous and said, "She's not trying to coerce you into anything, you can think about." But Hansen stopped her and said, "No, he'll become your student." Hansen thinks, she was the challenger for higher than 40th floor, there is no reason to refuse the teaching of someone that strong, she said, "but don't regret it later on." Hansen said, "Are you planning on treating him so roughly, he'll regret it later? Like with a whip?" She frowned and said, "No, a master is usually something you have only once in your life, when it comes Murim, so, she's telling you not to regret it." Hansen said, "If you are worried about that, then he really won't regret it." She said, "Then according to procedure, she will officially introduce herself before you do your bows. She's the 17th lord of the Beak swordsmanship clan, the previous generation's strongest Murim fighter. She's Bexialewe." Hansen wonders, strongest Murim fighter? He bows down and pays respect to his master. Then she started to explaining that, to briefly summarize the theory, it's like this: martial arts is broadly divided into mental arts and bodily arts. Mental arts are technique that refine the outward magic power to the inner part of your body. Bodily art are techniques that utilize your body, and there are weightless body technique and sword arts that correspond to how you move. Then while listening to these explanation, a question formed, and Hansen wonder, is heavenly blood cultivation art also a mental art? Then he said to White Crane Sword Master that, he has something curious about, is there no problem even if he has a different mental art he already learned? She was shocked to hear that, she coldly looked Hansen and asked, "What did you just say? You have a mental art, you know?" Then she quickly asked, "Explain it more details." Hansen said, "So, after listening to your explanation, he think he knows something that's similar to a mental arts, she said. Similar, perhaps. Did you learn aura training from that woman, iron-blooded monarch? Hansen thinks, aura training? Is that another world's concept of mental arts? He said, no, not that, she said. She's not someone who would break a promise like this, she can't trust her, let her properly check. Then suddenly she approached toward Hansen, Hansen puzzled when she reached near him and placed her palm to Hansen's abdominal and realized her aura to check. All this happened so fast that Hansen don't properly grasp the situation and said, excuse me master? She shushed him and said, be quiet for a moment. Then she radiating her aura and checking to Handsome. After checking that she realized something and said, but there are no traces of you have learned any mental arts. When she get rid of the pure magic power? Hansen wonder, that heavenly blood cultivated art is actually an authority that was sponsored by admin called Fallen Year of the Soldier, something or other from the 12th floor, and he used it often since his combat senses are enhanced when heavenly blood cultivator art is activated. She said in relaxed tone, that's an authority, not a mental art. Of course, it seems that the mental art that you learned in your lifetime has mixed with the authority, but you can't consider that a mental art. Then Hansen understood and he said, but master, can we get out of this awkward position for now? She suddenly realized and run from there, standing on a corner with red face. She said, she apologized. She was so surprised that she checked it crudely, but then suddenly she feel gloomy and dark said, but she don't like it, that a mongrel of the blood cult would sponsor such a lowly mental art as an authority. Hansen thinks, he need to adjust his assessment of White Crane Sword Master. Then she said, now that she think of it, it might be better that you didn't learn a mental art. You can accumulate magic power even without learning a mental art, and if you learn multiple mental art through authority, you can use them interchangeably. Hansen with tense voice asked, is that okay? She said, it's fine because her martial art don't rely too heavily on mental art. However, what happened just now is because mental art are important when it come to the master-student relationship. First, she'll teach you swordsmanship, so try to copy her, and Hansen said, okay. Then he activated his skill fighting concentration up to 10x, then the White Crane Sword Master draw his sword with embedded with pink glowing aura and performing his swordsmanship in front of Hansen. Hansen thinks, he has only seen her being gentle, so he didn't know, but she really is a martial artist. She said, now, she will show you the first basic move of her sword art, White Sword 7 techniques, White Sword Flashing C, and with that she moved very fast and swiftly sword style appeared in front of Hansen. He was shocked to see that fast move. She said, you might not have seen it properly. She apologized, this is the minimum speed for White Sword Flashing C. Hansen said, it's okay, he think he will be able to copy it, and thinks, it's feel like you can't avoid the space itself, so you pull it towards you and then cut it. Then he performed that same technique very fluently and said, something like that? He tried his best to copy it. Did he get it right? She was shocked and said, this make no sense. There have been geniuses in every generation. These people have an ability to absorb information and can achieve much bigger accomplishment than other people. Geniuses show the peak of ability by understanding and observing others. However, a genius can only demonstrate their true ability after some practice. But Hansen said, is this correct? She was shocked and surprised and hold his head while thinking, what in the world? To see White Sword Flashing C just once and copy it. She said to Hansen that, it seems you don't understand how incredible this is. White Sword 7 techniques is a martial art that uses harder principles than the Blue Heaven Sword forms. The two basic move you copied from the Namgum clan are a part of the Blue Heaven Sword forms, but you immediately copied White Sword Flashing C like it was nothing, and after only seeing it once at a standard quite similar to the original, Hansen was surprised and thinks, principle of fast and slow don't mean much to him. She said, you are a genius of institution. She has never even heard of grasping skills based on seeing the essence itself, rather than through experience or judgment. Hansen said, even if you say that, he don't really understand what you mean. Then she raised his finger with very happy and said, "One day, it's mean that you can learn the majority of martial arts in one day." Normally, martial arts understood and recreated by having a book as a basic for each one. However, you don't need the book analysis, you just need to watch and copy them. However, she will let you know how to use magic power, body art, fist technique, weightless body technique and even grappling techniques. She learned all she could, and the most useful things out of all of that, was the sword art, white sword 7 techniques, white sword flashing C, where you hold space itself and cut, making it basically impossible to dodge. White sword piercing sky, is strong stabbing technique that is specialized to penetrate shields. White sword folded emptiness, a defense skill that distort the space near the air. All this Hansen learned, his master jumping happily while clipping. Hansen also happy. Then he said, "He learned a lot thanks to you, master." She was happy to hear the master word. She said, "What a relief that you think so." Then Hansen bowed then said, he will take his leave. But she said, "Already? You can stay a bit longer." But Hansen turned from there and said, "He will come back again later, stay safe until then, master." She was like, she's in heaven, flying with joy. Then again she adjusted her voice and said, "Okay, you have strength too, you are talented, you will be quickly improved." After that Hansen entered 14th floor waiting room. He thinks, he has learned a lot, although it's a shame that he couldn't learn all 7 skill of the White Sword 7 technique at his current level. Then he thinks, Demon Slayer skill, although it's a swordsmanship technique that he has used well and developed with thus far, it's now too lacking for Namgung Husk Blue Heaven Sword form or Master's White Sword 7 techniques. He will make a skill using the authority path of the Blade Master. Then a system active shows that, authority Iron-Blooded Sword activated, skill Fighting Concentration activated. Hansen start practicing sword moves and thinking, using Blue Heaven Sword form and White Sword 7 technique as dual blade swordsmanship, has made it more complete than before, but it's still too lacking to be developed as a skill. Then he remembered that his master said, to develop a skill, it need to be a system that will be acknowledged as a skill. Then practice countless cuts enter the air, and countless thoughts pass and repeat in your head. Then Hansen was surprised to see, system window pop up and says, authority path of the Blade Master has strongly activated. Then skill first mixed sword, activated. Hansen was happy and thinking, a skill really manifested, but he liked that there are several revisions, it's a bit lackluster. Then he opened inventory and a book which the reward of the 13th floor trial. Then he opened the book and said, let's try using it, and then message appear that, you have used random skill book and acquired skill authority hero's blessing strongly activated. Then he synthesized 2 swordsmanship and created a new skill. First mixed demon sword which is S rank. Then Hansen approached to portal for 14th floor trial. After entering, system says, you have met a strong enemy that is hard for you to handle as the user. Skill Indomitable will activated. Hansen shocked and fond to see, there is Namgunhyuk standing there with killing all the monster dead body laying around him. Namgunhyuk said, how much longer are you planning to making this young lord wait? You didn't come looking for me after he killed all these monster. So he thought he came here by mistake. He laughed very arrogantly. Hansen also laughed arrogantly, and lots of his skill activated. Then Hansen run toward Namgunhyuk, and they both clash their sword and with impact of shock wave, the waters from there dispersed. After clashing their swords Namgunhyuk surprised to see Hansen using sword flame. He asked, how is he using sword flame? Hansen said, why are you surprised already? He is just getting started. And then he bring out his second sword and attack with dangerous moves which Hyuk barely dodges it, and then Hansen kick him and Hyuk fall back to a rock and there is a little cut on his cheeks. He was shocked and surprised to see, there is big 3 slash coming towards him and that landed on him. After dispersing all the dust Hyuk standing there and blocking that attack with his sword, Hansen said, what do you think? While Namgunhyuk stand there and in his back there's 3 big slash cut on a mountain, Hansen asked to him, How's his newly made S-rank swordsmanship skill? Dual consecutive hits can fire of 2 more attacks at the same time as the sword's original attack, and at the exact same power as the sword attacks performed. Hansen thinks, this is already overpower. Then Hansen with mocking smile said, that scar on your cheek, will bother you until you die. Then Hayek raised his 2 fingers up and there is aura on it, that he rubbed the scar to heal and said, this much bleeding? And then rushed toward Hansen. They again both clashes their swords with very fast and perform their sword attacks. Namgung Hayek said, what you are using right now, the swordsmanship, the Qinggong technique, it's definitely Murim. Why did you hide your martial arts before? Hansen said, he didn't hide them, back then he was actually scared he might die, so he learned, all day yesterday. Listening this Hayek was frown and with anger he said, you are still as rude as ever, seeing as how you are saying such crazy nonsense like learning martial arts in one day. Dodging his attack Hansen with smile said, believe him or not. Then again clash their swords and there is a big impact generate from this and Hansen fighting with shoulder to shoulder. Then Hansen said, but someone told him, that he is a genius, and he can do something like this too. Then again they both fight fiercely with their swords move. Namgung Hayek wonder, this swordsmanship? And greeted teeth and with very angry said, you bastard, how dare you steal the Namgung clan's swordsmanship without knowing your place? Hansen with mocking smile said, and then you should have made it harder to copy. Is it his fault that he could copy it after seeing it once? It's your fault for making the swordsmanship sloppy. After listening this Hayek was very angry, and with a loud shout he rushed towards Hansen to kill him. Hansen dodging his attack and thinks, incredible, his swordsmanship, and even his irregular movements, but you properly wouldn't even dream about it, about the fact that you are giving him a high-class lesson right now. With smile thinks, he will remember it well and use it all later. Then Namgung Hayek raise his hand above which a purple light appears and then a trail of light released with his hand and he activated forceful battle. Which Hansen know that skill previous, then there is swords falling around them. System inform them a 30-meter radius fighting domain has been establishment, no one can enter this domain. With smile Namgung Hayek said, he got you, and as he going to attack, then sudden frown and stop there are blood drops around him, which Hansen controlling with his skill, he said, do you know what people on earth call situations like this? A disaster you called up on yourself. And then he launched the attack with blood manipulation skill. Namgung Hayek was hit by blood skill he said, after learning martial arts still using witchcraft, the blood swarming around fighting domain. With that Hayek was hit on abdomen and hand, he barely holding that attack, then he jump above but to block by his domain, then he released his forceful battle skill, then Hansen suddenly appeared behind him very fast and attacked him, which Namgung Hayek falling from above to ground and push back several meter into forest, that craving a long crater. Hansen landed and exhales his breath and said, even Murim's genius in such a state. Then Namgung Hayek burst into laugh. Hansen suddenly tense little and thinks, what? Did he go crazy? Namgung Hayek laughing and said, interesting, he don't know how you did it, but you learn martial art and got strong in such a short period of time. It's so much fun. Then he bring out a stone, he said, even if you use the tower's witchcraft, it's incredible, he'll acknowledge that. Then Hansen jumps toward him to attack and said, did you think he had just let you? And attack 2/moves, but Namgung Hayek already crushed that stone and with that there are blood drops coming to his mouth and he swallow it. Then there is a big blast happened, the system popped up that floor invading penalty relief stone used. With blast all round area was burned. Then Namgung Hayek approached and untie his hair and said, aren't you curious? Then there is a blue-purple dragon appeared in the sky which is released with his sword. He said, about why he is called the Blue Heaven Sword Dragon. Hansen was frown and scare little and said what the hell? Namgung Hayek approaching toward Hansen, he said, strengthened sword eye isn't something a bastard like you should get to see, consider it an honor. And then swing his sword, which Hansen prepared to defend it. He thinks earlier when he talked with his master, about the use of chi, in other words the concept of using magic power on your sword. Sword chi is a technique adds properties that interfere with the law of the sword itself, while sword flame is a stage where you can add another one of those properties, and strengthened sword chi is the next stage. Blue Heaven sword technique approaching towards Hansen, and Hansen thinks he had be able to see strengthened sword chi this quickly, and then he dodging it and thinks he didn't know it would be this strong. When he heard the explanation, this is a really crazy skill, the sword reached rapidly lengthens and make it difficult to even approach in the first place, the sword has really become a living dragon. Then Hansen can't dodge the hit. He tried to block, but the hit was so fierce that after taking hit his hand was blooded with blocking impact, and pushed back several meter far. He thought he would just bit stronger than the vampire count. That was an idiotic assumption. Sword enlightenment, he felt it final listening to master teaching, but he feel like Murim's master get to skip a few growth stage throughout their enlightenment. Then they face each other. Namgung Hayek said, "Where did your ease from earlier go?" Hansen thinks he should have finished with full power as soon as he started. It was going easy wanting to get a lesson, and now things are going to be annoying. Then Hansen activate his authority heavenly blood cultivation art. With that he crumbled the ground and said, "Prepared yourself, he is going full force," while Hayek jumping on him said, "Do your best." They both approaching towards each other, and then Hayek launches his ultimate attack. Hansen used white sword fold emptiness, which swallowed Namgung Hayek attack. Hayek shouted, "Where else did you steal martial arts from?" All of these struggles are useless in front of strengthened sword chi, and his attack again came to face of Hansen. Then Hansen fighting concentration reached by 20x. After dodging, he got behind Namgung Hayek, now and approach very fast toward him, but sudden he hit by Hayek ultimate attack. He fall to the ground, and blood coming from his mouth, and then again a attack coming toward him. He jumped from there and dodged it, but Hayek start attacking him continuously with his move while Hansen parry his attack with his sword 7 technique. He is like struggling, he thinks, did his strengthened sword chi just fold emptiness? Then his leg cut by that attack, his ashen blood skill activated, while he blocking and healing himself. Namgung Hayek appears behind Hansen and kicked him into his stomach, that he fall behind 100 meter behind and landed on a stone, and coughed blood, but Namgung Hayek didn't give him chance to recover again, come to attack and shouted to die, attacked him with his ultimate move, which Hansen directly hit, but he blocked it with his cross swords formation. The stone around him crushed into pieces, blood and water mixed, and Hansen sitting there, while Namgung Hayek standing there. He asked injured Hansen that, how is he withstood that attack? He's a bit surprised, to be honest, he didn't think you'd be able to fight evenly with me. Then he again raise his sword and prepare his strengthened sword chi and said, but those struggles are over now too, it was fun, and with that he laughed like crazy and launch his attack. Hansen stand there all bloody body with trembling hand prepare his sword to defend and said, after how hard he worked to get up here, you think he will die that easily for you? And then, skill counter shield has released all absorbed damage at once. With that his attack head on and charged toward Namgung Hayek, which Namgung Hayek dodged it very fast and rushed toward Hansen and pierced his neck, and with crazy laugh said, "AHH, yes, that's the expression." And with that he beheaded Hansen. Hansen's head was flying into air, his eyes were shocked. Then system messages appears that, skill last stand activated, nullifying your critical life-threatening wounds. All of his senses will be amplified for a short duration and the effect of all other skills are perfected. Then Hansen's head start attaching to his body and totally healed. He thinks, last stand an additional reward that he received from the 12th floor trial, the situation where he received a fatal injury was reversed. He didn't think it would actually nullify it like this, then scream very loud, thinks the 12th floor had one more reward. He bring out ancient emperor's ash crown, then authority serene mind strongly activated, and thinks, let's use everything he can. And then he said, he command his servants, then all the monster which were killed, now alive. Namgung Hayek was shocked to see that. Then Hansen ordered them to crush him. They all attacked Namgung Hayek. He said, You bastard! From an evil sect to necromancy? You can never beat him, with witchcraft like this. Then he again performed his ultimate and cut the monsters into pieces, and then he raised his hand towards Hansen and grabbed his neck with his hand and said, "Let's see if you can revive again." Hansen was panicked, but then he calm while Namgunghyak sword going to hit him, and then sword stopped near his face and Namgunghyak face covered into some kind of infection which he can't move his body. He said, "What are you doing to him?" Hansen hold his hand and said, "He told you that scar." Then a monster approaching from behind with very big jaw open towards Hayek, and then the all monster start eating Namgung Hayek, while Hansen said that scar would bother you until you died. Earlier, Namgung Hayek childhood, his parents never recognize his talent, his father disappointed with him and asked his mother, does he truly have his blood, while he sitting near ground and watching his parents quarreling, he just enjoy conversation with his sword. Then someone said, before even following any fixed moves, "You're developing a path of sword, a true genius." That was the first time he met his grandfather. After that he was raised by his grandfather, the contemporary sword supreme, and as a result, he began explosively developing in unprecedented manner, and one day with happily he present the heads of the blood cult to his father, as hope for praise and acceptance, but his father still criticize him harshly, and even call him monster. That time he lost his everythings and tears drops. At a present, he's still crying while thinking all this, while monster are eating him alive. Then system message appears that crown has been completely consumed and it has been destroyed. Then all the monster again died. After that Hansen was very shocked and said, "You are still alive." Then Namgung Hayek said, "Hurry up and end it." Hansen sat there and watching him dying, he said, "Isn't it fascinating? Normally, we never would be even met, but two people of different dimension have fought like this. You and him fighting was insanely difficult and painful, but what's funny, is that he even thought, that this felt fun. If we had been friends, we would have exchanged accomplishment and had fun," is what he thought. Then Namgung Hayek said with laughing, "Push over bastard, to still have such thoughts while climbing the towers, and let me tell you something funny, why he stopped climbing the tower and invaded this dimension. He wasn't just to enjoy murdering you. After gaining divinity he became with a certain god, and even felt threats to his own life. The chosen one inevitable have to deal with divinity, and the moment they do, they have to face gods in a various forms. You too will soon have to deal with divinity, but if you climb the tower with that foolish mentality, even with divinity, you will not be able to prevent the gods from destroying your earth." Then Hansen said, "No. That won't happen. Those who destroy the base of his life will all be killed by him." Then he attacked him with Truth Seeker of Blood. Namgung Hayek died. The system, congratulation with various rewards. Then the basic of the creation of myth has been sufficiently arranged. Divine power is being strongly activated. Hansen thinks, another myth has been created. Myth battle-tested warrior is complete, and after accumulating divine power, from now on, effect indomitable will be bound to challenger Hansen's divine management. After receiving all this divinity, Hansen was happy. Then he absorbed the spirit of Namgung Hayek and his necromancy proficiency reached 100% and it risen one rank. Hansen thinks basically floor invader's body disappears but Namgung Hayek body not, because he used the penalty nullify stone, and his sword start absorbing the blood of Namgung Hayek, causing the item to grow to a rank, and strengthening apprehension skill engrave on exclusive slots of sword. He thinks that's another property that he can add on the sword flame. Now, he thinks about his clothes that can't be restored, so he has to go shopping on Earth. Then his both contractor Iron-Blooded Monarch and White Crane Sword Master offer him a decent armor and martial art robes. Hansen was frown. Then he goes to Iron-Blooded Monarch first, and enter into home. She said, "Good work, it's been a while." Then she give him a pendant as a present. Hansen said, "You offer me armor?" Then she said, "Once you put the magic power to pendant, the armor will naturally equipped." Then she said, "Equip it for the first time outside of the tower." Then Hansen goes to White Crane Master and greet her. She said, "She thought you'd come to her first, but to think you'd go to that woman first." She's disappointed. Hansen apologies to her, then she said, would you like permission to do one thing for you? She want to do your hair. Hansen was frown and surprise and said, you are not a hairdresser and you don't have the tools. Then she said, the white sword 7 techniques will be enough, you'll get hurt if you move, so stay still. Hansen trying to stop her but he can't helped, then he saw himself into mirror and quite happy and praise his master, then she gave him item of martial artist robes and let him go from there quickly, and wish good luck. Hansen enter 15th floor waiting room, floor there are lots of system messages appears that, the command quest has opened, now challenger can. Received several quests from administrator and received reward from them. Now, Hansen wondering why the administrator were trying so hard to be nice to him, it was so they could commission him for their quests, then he ignore all and focus on burrowing heaven sword, which seems to be highly compatible with sword chi and sword sense that helps with the user's development. These item are crazy op. Now Hansen hold the sword and unification with the sword. Then sword exclusive effect sword sense has activated and with that Hansen absorbed the skill sword sense. Hansen look very happy with that and thinks, he used sword sense to absorb sword sense, so where he originally could only learn 2 skills, he can now learn 3, then he again absorbed the skill burrowing heaven. Hansen thinks, now that he has mastered the skill as a system skill, so, he can use burrowing heaven even without this sword. Then a message appears. Hansen click it. Li Weiyun shouted on him that you should at least contact her, even if you're not an ordinary guild member, we're still partners. Hansen frowned and said, he should test her next time. Then he noticed something, that is a challenger from Ares has just committed a large-scale massacre in London. Hansen thinks, another dimension invasion? And then he remembered Namgung Hayek words, that he will not be able to prevent the god from destroying your earth. Hansen was pissed off and gritted his teeth in anger.